A night that was supposed to be fun in movies turned out to be the fatal night of a young girl. This all involves domination, bondage, and non-consensual sex. This is the case of non-consensual submissive love. This all starts with Catherine McDonough. She had a dream of becoming an actress, and the dream seemed possible when she received a part in a play in the fall of 2011. She was only 17 and she was the sweetest girl, but everything changed when she met Seth Mazzaglia in the summer of 2011 through the local theater scene. Pretty soon, it was evident to dramatically change on her after she started to date Steph. One day, Denise McDonough, Kat's mother, arrived at home, and on her bed, there was a note waiting for her. The note said in substance, "I love you, but I can't stay here anymore. I need to leave. I need to be free. I will contact you when I'm ready." Denise was surprised to know that the note was from Kate, because she had never run away from home. She eventually learned through email from one of Kat's friends that Kat was at Steph's apartment. That's when Denise discovered that Kat and Steph were dating, because until now she thought they were friends because of their age difference, since Steph was in his mid to late 20s. Denise tried to contact Steph through Facebook, but after the conversation, he told her, "I don't want to see you," and unfriend her. Denise tried to get her daughter back into the family's house, but that seemed impossible. "I thought I had convinced her to come home. I arranged to pick her up after work. On that day, she called in sick to work. I texted her and she said, 'Stop stalking me.'" But still, Denise didn't give up and went to Steph's apartment that Sunday evening with her father and sister-in-law. Denise then knocked on the door. Steph steps out and shuts the door most of the way. His stance was he puffed up his chest as big as it could be, but Denise didn't show any fear and kept asking to see her daughter. The conversation didn't end well, leading Denise to call Seth a pedophile, and that ended up in a fight between Denise's father and Seth. The fight was so loud that Kat came out into the hallway. Denise sat on the floor in the hallway as Kat stood by her side, as they both started to cry. When police officers arrived at the complex, Denise apologized for her behavior and tried to explain that she wanted her daughter to move out of that house because Kat was 18 and Steph was 28 or 29. But the police couldn't do much because she was already 18. After that day, she only saw her daughter 4 more times between the time Kat moved out of the house and the time Seth was arrested. Seth had a job at the local electronics store and taught martial arts, but his real obsession was fetish sex. He'd got Kat involved in bondage and domination, and the details were found on fetish websites as they look out for threesomes. But Lizzi wasn't part of that war. She just wanted to be Kat's friends. Lizzi Marriott, more known as Lizzi, 19, had just started to study marine biology at the University of New Hampshire. It was a perfect subject for Lizzi, who adored nature and was always rescuing new animals in need. The universe was a few hours away from her hometown in Massachusetts, so she was living with her aunt and uncle during that time. It was easy for the young girl to settle in and make friends. And on October 9, 2012, Lizzi told her aunt and uncle she was going to a friend's house and she'd be back by midnight. The following day, she still didn't have any return, and her family assumed she'd stayed the night. But as the hours ticked by, they started to panic. It was very unlike Lizzi not to be in touch. Her parents reported her missing and jumped in a car to search for her. Lizzi's last text had said she was visiting a girl called Kat. Police figured out that was Catherine McDonough, who worked with Lizzi at the local department store. So police brought Kat and Steph in for questioning. Kat insisted Lizzi had never showed up that day, so she had gone to a local cemetery to try and take photos of ghosts. Seth said he had gone for a run, but soon his story started to change. He said Lizzi had come to the house where she had placed that cat. He admitted that afterwards, while they were having consensual sex, Seth had tightened a rope to tie around Lizzie's neck, and she had a seizure. Seth said Cat helped him dump her body in the Piscataqua River, which led to the Atlantic Ocean, but despite intensive search, police still couldn't find her. Seth was then arrested and charged with murder. In a bin outside of his apartment, officers found some of Lizzie's clothes and a pair of black gloves. But friends and family started to question this sordid story because this was out of Lizzie's character. After Seth's arrest, Cat changed her story and said Lizzi had come to the flat that day, but her death was an accident. They'd watched a film, play cards, and the night led to consensual sex between the three of them. It started going from silly to sexual, she admitted. Cat insisted Lizzi had agreed to be tied up with bondage ropes, but while Cat was on top of Lizzi, she had suffered a seizure, suffocated, and died. Police said Seth's confession, but couldn't prove Cat was involved in the murder. 2 months later, she was charged with 3 counts involving hindering an investigation. Without a body to provide evidence, authority had no choice but to offer Cat a deal. If she testified against Steph, she'd get a maximum of 3 years, and she accepted. Cat testified she was under Steph's control. They had an adventurous sex life, and he had explicit demands. Steph became angry towards Cat when she left him home for nearly 2 weeks without a sex partner, while she attended theater camp and demanded she bring him another woman to join in their sexual escapades. You choose a friend, any of yours will do, and you offer her to me, that I may do anything I wish with her while you watch. Cat admitted she had chosen Lizzi as her offering and lured her to their flat. Lizzi had no idea what she was being set up. October 9, Cat and Lizzi were watching a Dungeons and Dragons movie while sitting on the floor with their backs against the futon in the living area. Then, Cat, Lizzi, and Steph had played a game of Flapaka, and Lizzi ended up just using her underwear. Cat was naked with the exception of her glasses, and Seth was wearing a robe. That's when Seth began his advances. He asked Lizzi to kiss Cat during the game. When Lizzi said she wouldn't, the game died down. Later, Steph asked Lizzi if he could have sex with Cat in front of her. He said his girlfriend was naked and he wanted her. She said it wasn't okay because she was in a very committed relationship, and she just did not want to be part of that, Cat said. The couple then exchanged text messages, including one where Steph asked Cat if they were still planning to paint that night. Cat took it as a quote for the couple trying to get Lizzi involved with them sexually. Your decision, I guess. If you have a plan, nervous, Cat wrote to Seth. Soon after, Seth put on a pair of black leather winter gloves, rose up behind Lizzi, put a thin rope over her head, and choked her from behind. She was sitting right next to me. He moved up close behind her. It was still on the bed, and he wrapped the rope over her head and around her neck and started pulling on it. She let out a quick noise and then she stopped moving. I glanced over and saw it happen. I glanced up at you and tried to focus my thoughts. I didn't know what to do, Cat said. Then she got up and went to a window she looked out of when she was stressed. Seth motioned to her to close the curtains, and she did. Seth laid the limp Lizzi on her back on the floor next to the bed. Her body wasn't moving, but it looked like her body was still trying to get air. Her mouth would open a little bit and then close, and it looked like her lungs or diaphragm would try to be moving, like they would move just a little bit to try to get air, Cat explained. Seth asked Cat to check for a pulse. She checked Lizzie's ankle, wrist, and neck and could find no pulse. Cat went to the bathroom to look at herself in the mirror and realized she had nobody else in her life besides Seth. When Cat left the bathroom, Seth was having intercourse with Lizzi, motionless body on the floor. When he finished, Seth went to a shop and directed Kat to place the rope back on Lizzi's neck. Kat said she held the rope gently on Lizzi's neck to appease the man who had brutalized her just weeks before when she worked as a consul at an overnight summer theater camp. She suffered a graphic and rape-like punishment for failing to find a temporary sexual partner for Seth before she left for the summer camp. They then decided to dispose of the body instead of calling police. Kat began to pick up Lizzi's belongings and place them into plastic bags, while Seth wrapped Lizzi's body in the tarp that the couple was using for a painting project and then placed her in the suitcase. I had a suitcase in my closet and I emptied out. It was one of the ones with an extendable handle. She was placed inside it, wrapped up, and it was not going to close. So he got duct tape and he held the suitcase shut while I wrapped the duct tape around the suitcase, Kat said. She and Seth turned off their cell phones as well as Lizzi's and drove to Portsmouth. They ended up at Pierce Island. It was difficult to get Lizzi's body into the water. They tried to drag it in the suitcase, then Seth attempted to use the tarp to drag Lizzi around. It wasn't working right, so he tried to pick her up over his shoulders. He was unable to lift her. I wasn't strong enough to lift her. It was then decided to use the suitcase to pull her along. It was a really hard, long process because she would fall out, Kat confessed. The couple finally got Lizzi's body to a lookout near a cliff, and Seth was able to get Lizzi over the railing. From there, he pushed her into the water. To make sure Lizzi was completely submerged, Kat went to where the body landed and started to pull it towards the water. It was a very slow process, a couple inches with every pull. In the process, her underwear came off. I stuck that in my pocket and managed to push her into the water, Kat said. After she got Lizzi's body into the water, she placed a rock on it. When asked if Kat had any remorse of what she did, she said that she felt remorse immediately after placing Lizzi's body in the water. It was never anything I would ever expect to do in my life. Her body was all floating covered in seaweed. I didn't even know what to think. I felt so awful. I was so confused. Kat then started to think and said with guilt all the things Lizzi would never be able to do. She is never going to get married. She is never going to have kids. It's all because of us that she never got to live her life. Seth planned to escape from the country with Kat. He wanted to flee to a nation that would not extradite the couple back to the United States. If those plans did not work, Kat was instructed to commit suicide and start her life again. She explained better, saying that Seth told her they had lived together in past lives and they would be together in future lives. If their plans went off track, Kat had to give up on this life. In the 33rd letter Seth sent to Kat from jail, he wrote, "In case something goes wrong, it's oversimplified, but this letter explains and spells out ritual to restart and recall our past lives." Seth laid out an elaborated 3 and 7 days delayed plan. On separate sheets of paper, he used graphic and light descriptions to explain to Kat what she had to do next. The next content is a little disturbed and sexual graphic, so if you don't feel comfortable to these themes, go to this part of the video. During the first ritual, she was supposed to wear skinny jeans, no bra, and shoes that slip off easily. Then, she was supposed to seduce her brother, Ben, into having sex with her. In a second equally disturbing ritual, Kat was expected to go to a frat house and find 10 college-age men who were smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. After dropping her skirt, she was supposed to give each student as many turns as each one wants. Kat said she was to perform these graphic acts to gather energy or something like that. When asked if she had done any of the rituals, she replied no. Later, it was introduced in suicide notes Kat wrote. "I wanted to be known that in the event of my sudden death, I know what I was doing. I spent many hours thinking about it." She said she wanted all of her money to go to the ISPCA and was concerned about who could take care of Raven, Seth's cat. When asked about why she wrote that note, she said, "I didn't feel like living anymore. An email that Seth sent to Kat was also made public. On the bottle of the email, Seth had written, "You will be okay. You can do it with Mr. Castle's help. We can do it." Mr. Castle is a reference to Ryan Beckman, Seth's cellmate in the medical unit of the jail. Ryan testified that Seth intended to break out of the jail and had solicited Ryan to sell drugs so he would have money to buy guns, obtain 2 getaway cars, and make explosive devices. Ryan stole the $800 to $1,000 Steph gave him access to, went to Massachusetts, and bought some heroin instead. In August 2014, Kat McDonough was sentenced to a reduced sentence of 1.5 to 3 years in the women's prison in Goffstown in exchange of her truthful testimony against theft. As a release from prison years, she planned to live with her father on the seacoast. Because of her notoriety, board members said Kat would have difficulty finding a job or even being in public near where the crime occurred. But with the sentence served, she is under no obligation to follow the board's guidelines, and the boards can impose any conditions on her. She doesn't have to tell authorities where she'll live. She was released July 15, following 3 years of incarceration. There was one person who was not surprised when Seth was arrested for Lizzi's murder. Her name is Catherine, and she dated Seth when she was in high school and he was in college in upstate New York. It was inevitable that Seth Mazzaglia was going to kill, and Lizzi Marriott was the perfect victim for him, Catherine said. When asked if this was a sexual encounter that went wrong or was a murder, Catherine said, "No, murder, this was a murder. I wish that she hadn't been there, but if it wasn't Lizzi Marriott, it would have been somebody else. He fantasized about murder a lot when I was with him." Catherine explains what she meant by Seth's dark side. Initially, it was, the flowers, and he was very caring. When asked what changed, she said, "He always been into the BDS type thing." BDSM stands for bondage and sadomasochism. And unlike 50 Shades of Grey, the popular book series turned movie, Catherine said Seth gradually became increasingly violent and sexually abusive. We were naked and fooling around, and he put his hand around my throat fully. And I told him to stop, and he started doing harder, and it just completely freaked me out. Catherine said Seth gradually took control of her life. It's this slow descent into lack of choices to the point where I can't live. In 2002, the couple moved to New Hampshire, where Kat says Seth was always trying to bring other women into their beds. It was something that was a constant. There was always needing to have more than just me in the relationship. Asked why she didn't leave, Catherine told, "Where would I have gone? I was 600 miles away from home and afraid to leave because if I left him, he would kill me. He would hunt me down and he would kill me." But eventually, Catherine managed to move out and went into hiding until she saw that Seth was accused of killing Lizzi Marriott. Seth was convicted of murder and is serving a sentence of life without parole. Christopher Ramos is a registered sex offender who was in jail with Steph and testified on Steph's murder trial. He claimed to have a jailhouse conversation with Steph about the night of the murder. Christopher told investigators at the time that Steph would not tell him all of the details of Lizzi's death, just that he blacked out and he was on top of her and Kat was on the head. But Steph never told him what Kat was doing. Roberta Jorkin, a friend of Steph's, testified she got a strange call from Kat around 10:49 that night. Something was wrong. They wanted my assistance and they wanted me to come over. Roberta and her boyfriend, Paul Hickok, arrived at Seth and Kat's apartment a little after 11 p.m. As I'm walking in, there's a body on the floor right next to the bed. Roberta said she did not recognize the young woman and said she checked for a pulse but found none. She also explained that she and Paul both urged Seth to call an ambulance and left the apartment, believing he would call for help. In her testimony, Roberta said she wanted to give her friend the opportunity to do the right thing. Despite moral outrage on behalf of many to Roberta and Paul's decision not to call help, according to New Hampshire law, there is no requirement to report a crime if you are a witness to it. If either Roberta or her boyfriend had agreed to do something that assisted Seth and Kat in covering up the crime or otherwise helping them, they could be considered an accomplice and changed accordingly. Neither Roberta or Paul were even charged with anything relating to Lizzi Marriott. Roberta also agreed to cooperate with police, creating a series of secret recordings with Kat. But Seth still didn't give up. He seeks to introduce information of Lizzi's alleged prior consensual sexual activity. That is sealed as part of his appeal to the Supreme Court, which set a mid-August deadline for parties to file arguments for and against unsealing the records. Russ Ryle, the lawyer representing parents of Lizzi, Bob and Melissa Marriott, said the possibility of having their daughter's private life exposed had shattered them. This has completely traumatized her family, who, following this animal's rape and murder conviction, were just starting to heal and move on. It's important for them to fight this battle for Lizzi. A right of privacy is the only right this animal didn't take away from her when he raped and murdered her. It's all she has left. The Rapsal law stopped defendants from using details of alleged victims' sex life as part of their defense, but the court may revoke it during an appeal, such as the one Seth made, arguing that if the details had been included in his defense, he wouldn't have been sentenced to life without parole. Rye believes that if the court rules that the rape shield law can be lifted on appeal, it will have a chilling effect on other rape victims coming forward. That is all that we know about the non-consensual submissive love case. Until today, Lizzi's body was never recovered. Her family has never had a formal funeral for her, and Lizzi has no grave. There's also a book that has more details about the case, named Dark Heart. Tell me, what do you think about Kat leading her friend to the worst night of her life and her death? And what about the lack of action of Roberta and her boyfriend? Well, that's it. Leave a like and comment other crimes that you like to see here. Bye!